Welcome to Ayurveda Rituals in Toronto. I am very honored to have my mentor and a wonderful, inspiring woman that has completely changed my life. And on my 72 Ayurvedic healing journey that I've committed to, she arrived here in Toronto to bless us all with this unbelievable work that she's been doing for so many years. I've known you now for, I don't know, 20,
At least
20 years.
probably more.
20 years. I met you in the 90s, and it was a life transforming moment because the first thing that you said was Ayurveda must be your lifestyle, and you are going to heal through food, breath, and sound. Let me introduce to you Mother Maya Tiwari, a famous, wonderful, the first key Ayurvedic woman that wrote several books inspiring women to heal, to change their lives, just like I've been changed. And so we're honored to have her here visiting us at Ayurveda Rituals in Toronto. And Mother Maya has been very busy for the last 20 years. She's been working on projects teaching Ayurveda around the world, completely inspiring the United Nations with your Living Ahimsa, Peace Mandela work that she did. She toured all over the world, teaching people to take a vow of Ahimsa, no violence of words, thoughts, actions to self or to the world, to others. But most inspiring is her living the Ahimsa lifestyle and all the work that she's done in her North Carolina ashram and wonderful training center, which is in North Carolina. It's called the Ayurveda Wise Earth Academy,
Wiser school.
Wise Earth School. And so I introduce you to Mother Mayam Tiwari and welcome. And I feel very honored, really, to be here in your presence and feeling the work that you're doing is an inspiration to many women.
Thank you, Andrea. It's a joy to be here with you again. And namaste to all of you. It's beautiful to be back in Canada. I love your country. So it's been 35 years on the road, really. Time flies.
Yes.
I know we forget how long you've been in the industry for a good 25 years, if not more.
Actually, it's my 34th year in the spa industry, and
Yeah.
I've been really focused on Ayurveda in the last 20 years, inspired by a lot of your work and your first book. When I received the gift once of Ayurveda, The Secrets of Healing.
Oh, that's the third book.
The third
The
book.
first was The Life of Balance.
Really?
Yes.
The Life of Balance. I love that book too. The psychological understanding of Vata Pitta Kapha. I think that a lot of people don't write about that. And my favorite thing, you are my favorite writer because the way you write, it's from your story, from your heart, but also really, it's really sharing wisdom and truth. To me, you're like a messenger from the rishis.
Oh, it's a woman's story, really, at the end of the day. And after 30 something years, what has happened for me was pretty much understanding that the great audience in the world that I've cultivated has been women. In Women's Power to Heal, was a more recent book, we talk about how to reclaim our divine femininity and what that means in terms of in living in this incredible methodology of the patriarchs for more than 1,000 years. So much of what we have done in terms of the way we respond to life, the way we live life, the way we think, has been patterned by patriarchal behaviors. And reclaiming that has been an incredible part of Ayurveda. You see, the rishis, the Vedic rishis, are very pro women. We have more goddess temples in India than anywhere in the world. I would say at least perhaps more than 200,000 goddess temples. When we look at the little rural village temples, every tree is a temple. And so, of course, you know, it's taking India some time to renovate and restore back the goddess understanding in each woman, meaning in every poor woman and of any economical bracket and all of that. But that is work that is being done and has to continue to be done. The preservation in the feminine aspect of life, we are also having the goshalas, the preservation of the cows, the preservation of the animals at large. Just yesterday was Kapoor Tihar, which is really a Vedic ritual to bless the dogs. Um, and it's very, very powerful. Of course, there are those who would say, but look, there's so many homeless dogs in India. Well, we've got a billion people, and we've got, we have the problems of having a nation of a billion people. But basically, the what the sages gave us in the Vedas, and the Vedas is way vast. I mean, we could be talking for another 1,000 years. This is how vast the actual Vedic knowledge is. Hinduism, by the way, is only a very small box in this enormous panoply of brilliant sciences that relate to the world. Ayurveda being one of, not only one of the most cherished sciences of the Vedas, but one that is becoming increasingly popular throughout the world because of the damages we have done to Mother Earth.
You know, I know that you've done a lot of work as a humanitarian and been a voice for women's rights as well as, this preservation of women's health and the earth's consciousness and health. What is your message to us as a water body, women being the predominant element of water and holding on to the emotions, our cellular memory, our story, our traumas, our pain, and how it's reflecting now in the oceans and the contamination of Mother Earth. What would
That
you
is so
suggest?
well put, Andrea, because it's not just the message of our water body. We are the water keeper. We are the fire keeper. We're the air keeper. We're the space keeper. We're the earth keeper. Women and their primordial feminine energy of the Shakti has always been the preservation energy of this universe. And to so many extent, the sustenance energy as well. It's not that men don't have the Shakti energy, but the women have it in a place where it's totally fulfilled, where we can fulfill. We can bring life through the channels of our own body. We can bring life through the channels of our own awakened heart. We can bring life through the spirit of who we are as women. And that is what we have to reclaim. You see, we have been badly trained over the last 1,000+ years in the patriarchal methodology. And so we feel when we're reclaiming femininity, it's still patterned by the way the masculine thinks and the way the masculine acts. For instance, the role of Shiva in the masculine person is a divine role. Shiva and Shakti are always intertwined, and that is when we create a balance in Mother Earth. But we've had the division, we've had a lopsided understanding and idea and practice of the patriarchal. And so the matriarchal has become a little lessened over a period of time. But we're neither talking about patriarchs and matriarchs when we talk about Mother Earth. She has both. We're talking about the maternal energy. There's a difference. The maternal, feminine, primordial energy carried by every child, every man, and certainly every woman. And in the woman, it's in this most prowess state.
What do you mean?
We can give birth.
Yes, of course. We can give birth. We sustain. We maintain.
We give
and
birth
we
to
destroy.
patriarchy. We give birth to matriarchy. We give birth to nonsenses. We give birth to incredible power. We give birth to peace. We give birth to war. We give birth to everything. Our feminine feature, and we have to analyze, not analyze, but look back deeper into what is it to be feminine. Well, I'll tell you one thing. Two of our greatest strengths are vulnerability and chaos.
Please elaborate on that.
Yes. A woman is a dynamic entity. Our energies are incredibly dynamic. It has to be in order to create, not only from the seed of birth of a baby, but the seed of creativity. Saraswati, sitting right next to you and blessing us, is the seed of absolute art and creativity. And what we mean by that, it is a feminine virtue, a feminine value, a primordial Shakti value. Creativity comes from what is it that was it Kierkegaard, was it Kierkegaard or Nietzsche that said that that creativity, or the star of creativity, burst from the star of chaos,
Mm.
right? It's a translated quote. I forgot the exact words. They were brilliant. And so that is the female.
Mm.
Yes, we strive for peace and order, but peace and order can only be achieved when we are in capacity of reining in and ruling with incredible restraint the chaos that is life.
Mm.
Women are so well formatted to deal with that. Men are formatted to deal with the power structure, the economic structures. I'm not going to define roles as women and men, but whereas they look at things in a competitive way, in the power driven, external, expansive field of accomplishments, women look at things in a collaborative way, in a community way, in the way of communal harmony, in the way of communal oneness. This is the woman. A man may look at something in terms of being competitive, ambitious, and competitive. It's not that women are not ambitious, but I'm just saying that in that competition, a woman natural feminine approach to that would be one of striving to understand a situation, not to compete in the situation, but to be inclusive in that situation, to understand how different roles, different capacity of the Shakti, different levels of intelligence within the community, male, female, and otherwise, that can be incorporated into that harmonious way. So they're always incorporating, they're always collaborating, there's always a cohesion of whatever the individuality, the competition, the unique one, unique individualism stuff is not so much a feminine characteristic as it is a masculine characteristic. And if we look at the roles that women in particular have played in our last 500 years, at least let's take back 100 years that we can remember, then we look at how much influence the patriarchal mind has had on the primordial feminine. So when we talk about reclaiming our feminine energy, it's not just about doing the exquisite beautification you have here, the red tent, which is so exquisite, a Shirodhara table, all made of the dhoni, which is a wooden table, the classical wooden table. In such intelligence, Andrea Spy set up Ayurvedically. Your products are hardly products; they are just incredible manifestations of femininity, of divine Shakti, of that energy, that essence pouring out of every pore of what you do. So basically, we are so powerful as women. You know, I say this all the time. Why fight for equal rights when we have superior rights?
You know, so how is this all affecting women's health? I mean, have you seen a big change in women's consciousness and how it's affecting their health? One of the things that you introduced us to in the Ayurveda world, as well as people looking to heal themselves. I mean, you healed, your journey of healing is incredible, and you share that so generously in all of your books. And one of the messages I always get is that, you know, everyone has the birthright to know their cosmic anatomy, to understand the influences of our cellular memory, and to take responsibility and participate in our healing journey. Whereas we always feel victimized by a disease, but it's actually come as a teacher. It's come as a way to wake us up and to really get to do the work of self-realization. And I love the way that you've brought in that cosmic understanding, the cellular memory, the lineage, our ancestors, how it manifests into our psyche, our bodies, and then the journey of how to balance it. I mean, you're very generous with your detailed step-by-step healing plans in all of your book. The path of practice, I think, has helped thousands and thousands of women first of all understand what Shakti is, because there's a lot of women that don't even understand what the word is. but you have very much given generously of that knowledge. And I feel that like you're an actual vessel, a transmission of the ancient knowledge that the rishis came to give us, or God, gave us as for humanity to heal. So when we start, what's the first step on understanding that cognitive memory, that cellular memory, to start doing that work or cleaning up the karmas?
Thank you, Andrea. It's a beautiful exposition of a question that speaks to the simplicity of what I thought. When I started Ayurveda, it was the first school in North America in 1981. It was really directly a little bit later after my cancer journey, from surviving ovarian cancer, returning to the motherland of India, to start my studies, to drop my uh, my garment of being a high fashion designer in New York City. Um, Cancer took me back to the lineage into which I was born, and then became later on a Vedic monk and all of that, and then dropping the robes later on as well, because I understood that I never regretted taking robes or being part of the lineage that I belong to in the most Veda Vyasa lineage, it is. But I understood that my journey as a woman was, in this lifetime, in this form, the most important part of my journey. And to reclaim that fully after losing the womb, after leaving a country that was becoming independent and had its own civil war in Guyana at the age of 16, and heading into New York City, then going to Woodstock directly after that, having a huge reality shift. It was the reality shift of shifts. Ovarian cancer, not only the greatest guru of my life, but thus far, but gave me back the journey of my purpose. And so that has been a complex and a very well trodden journey that brought me to this point in doing. So, what I did in Ayurveda was went back to the source of Ayurveda, the Rishi sources of Atharva Veda, not the prescriptive Ayurvedic modality that had taken form in India, and most of when the resurgence of Ayurveda came back into India a few hundred years ago, let's say 100 years ago, prominently, it was many allopathic doctors that pasted it together. And of course, Ayurvedic scholars were there as well. But it was beginning to lean more towards the prescriptive value of Ayurveda as opposed to the inherent inner medicine healing value, which we call sadhana. And so the restoration of sadhana, and I was privileged to do it because Dayananda Saraswati, His Holiness, was my Param Guru, my great guru, and I had mentors and tutors and incredible Gurukula education in India to be able to come back to the source and get into restoring sadhana. And what I want women to know is that healing is not complicated. We don't have to do 200 exercises and attend to 20 different things on a weekly basis in order to heal. If we understand the principle of sadhana, we take simple practices. My books line out very simple practices that we can choose what works for us and do it very simply. The most important change for healing is to shift our perspective from the external pursuit of the materialistic and the pattern patriarchal pursuits to something that becomes more highly internal. That is the hardest thing to do. Practices, sadhana allows us to do that. We walk barefoot on the grass in the morning, that's a sadhana. We go and we sit in a stream if we're lucky enough to live in the areas where there are streams, and put our barefoot into that water and let the water runs over it. We have found in Ayurveda, ancient Ayurveda, that diseases that are relating to the nervous system now in our culture here, like multiple sclerosis and so many else, actually is relieved by the natural running of the spring on our feet. So when we're talking about practices in sadhana, we're talking about the simplest possible practice. The most difficult thing in life is to do nothing and do it well. And so therefore, the simpler the practice, the more intelligence it takes.
Thank you for that. I find that people don't understand the word sadhana. They don't know how to begin a sadhana practice because it's always linked somehow to a religious practice. But what you're saying is that nature has daily rituals that we can adapt into our lives as well as be part of. And I think that this connection is the
And the
pain.
word spirituality is entirely misunderstood. We don't have to belong to a religion in order to be spiritual. As a human being, we are already spiritual. It is a question of our value and our conduct. If we are to conduct ourselves in the way of kindness, as the Dalai Lama would say, the best religion is that of kindness, he said, it is true. If we are to collect ourselves in terms of awareness and consciousness, and understand that everything we do to heal ourselves, say I have a disease and I'm healing it, it's not just about my healing. My my effort awakens my awareness, and the more my awareness grows, the more my consciousness grow, and that's where I go. And it also affects everything around us because we are all permeating energy, we are permeating consciousness, we are permeating awareness. We can't lock it up in the confines of our body. So basically, spirituality then is living in an awareful way, as we say, a mindful way, being conscious of simplifying, and this is the key word for sadhana. We must simplify our lives, whatever that means. We must not alienate ourselves from nature, where where we need a ticket and permission to get back to her. We can't do that, and we have done that. Yes, we live in urban areas, but we can still go to a park. Yes, we live in urban areas, but there are times when we can still travel to the forest or to the Mother Ocean or to vast desert. We need to always understand that the more we fill ourselves from Mother Nature, the more we fill her as well.
And I think that, thank you for saying that because one of the things that we're all in the yoga community or in the wellness community, we're all looking for these retreats where we're going to the beach, we're going away for a month or two and escaping our lives. But then when we come back, we get even more imbalanced because we get depressed. We don't want to be back in that routine. So that's why I took a 365-day vow to begin that daily sadhana of let's make an urban retreat and learn to incorporate that lifestyle and build that relationship back to Mother Earth on a daily basis. Like, believing like I am on a retreat and integrating that into the workplace and into the home and sort of living in that consciousness.
Absolutely, 101 sadhanas. Basically, we get up. There's the sadhana.
Yes.
That we can get up is a big, beautiful sadhana.
It's a blessing.
It's a blessing. And then the brushing of our teeth is a sadhana.
Yes.
The taking a bath is a sadhana. The absolute making oats in the morning is a sadhana. Everything is a sadhana. It's just how much awareness are we putting into each activity that we do.
Yes.
We get up and we sit in meditation. That's a very deep sadhana. We decided we want to pray every morning or every evening. That's a big sadhana. We cook for our children and our family every day. Most of us do, and basically that is a sadhana. It shouldn't be chop chop throw, go pick up child, go listen to phone. All of those things distract us from what we need to do. Everything that life gives us in terms of what we have to do in order to nourish ourselves for that day, to fulfill our task and responsibility for that day, whether it's at work or at home or with our children, our family, or with people we work for or work with. Everything we do has to become an act of awareness. Sadhana. When we're stuck in traffic and things are very miserable and we have very rude drivers around us, then the sadhana is to pull ourselves back into that container that is the goddess, that is the belly of Shakti, that is understanding. Um, yes, we can lose our cool, we can lose our temper, we can become impatient, we can do all of these things. But the instant we remember that we are impatient. The instant we bring to mind that I'm being impatient, oh, I'm being absolutely reckless, or that instant is the shift
Mm.
from unconscious to conscious behavior.
Okay.
That is a sadhana.
That is a sadhana.
That is a sadhana. I have found myself in the middle of, really, because I've always had a quick temper, and I have found myself in the middle of quick tempers where I catch it and I turn it around and it becomes a loving sadhana. It
That's
doesn't matter if we
beautiful.
look like multiple personalities. That does not matter at all.
Life's got to be
What
exciting.
matters, well, yes, as I said, women are vulnerable and chaotic.
Yes,
That is our beauty. That
that's
is
our
our
beauty.
gift. That is something to be so amazing. It's our primordial gift, and we can do it well. Imagine not have to compete in the present world the way the structure is set up. Imagine going in with the fullness of your confidence and heart because you are aware, and that's all we need is awareness. We don't need a PhD to go in and know the truth, and to speak the truth, and to understand the truth, and to do it in a way that unifies as opposed to tears it apart.
Mm.
Um, Violence is not just about what we say and what we do and what we eat. Violence is about the dissensions, the divisiveness, the stuff that cuts it apart rather than brings it together. Women bring things together. We are a gel. We need a little bit of body. We need that power of sitting in ourselves, and we don't have to apologize to anything or anyone or any tradition. That is spirituality.
Yes.
We've come into a time, and as you know, in 2011, I dropped the orange robe. I wore it for 20 something years, and then I dropped it. I didn't leave my spirituality, but I honored my femininity because it is a patriarchal lineage and every reason to be so. It's a very tough life, and we have a very vulnerable organ that we carry with us. Now, we don't have to walk from Kerala to the Himalayas. However, and women have taken the vows and robes, and many are very well suited to it. I'm not saying we can't. I'm just saying that in my vision of where we're going, and what I believe that the world needs, truly need, is not the division of color or religion, but solid bedrock of our ancestral memory to be honored, whichever tradition we come from, and also the unification principle of just being ourselves with our purpose that's helping some to serve and to help someone else to heal. For that, we don't need a robe. We absolutely need the simplicity of an unrobe. Now, one would say, but the robe is the simplest thing in the world. Not necessarily.
Mm.
Not necessarily, because it is also a group thing. The individual mind is very, very necessary where we're going, but the individual mind of unification is the most necessary. So I don't want to confuse the message with robes or non-robe. My memoir, which I wrote in the last, I took a year of sabbatical, extended it into 2 years of sabbatical, and after I realized how long I had been on the track, I figured, let me take more than 7 years. No, but I'm in my second year of the sabbatical, and that's
Okay.
why I haven't done so many trainings or whatever.
Yeah, because you've been
35 years
traveling
is
so
a
much.
long
Yes.
time. And I wrote the memoir in France and in England. I wanted to go to where these wonderful painters painted and look at the landscape, and I learned many things that teaches me about the world in that sense, and it's called The Heart Unrobed,
I can't
and
wait.
it's a beautiful, beautiful storybook.
Yes.
But here's the other thing: our sadhana ladies is our story, and our story is our sadhana.
Wow.
And we have to know what our story is, not the ones that we want to play act with and believe is our story. Because that's a story too. We're allowed many stories. But sooner or later, because of illnesses, despair, challenges, which we all face, some more than others, sooner or later, we get to the real story. And the real story has no embellishments, no adornments, no rasa. It has a rasa that is internal. It makes us exquisitely beautiful when you're able to have your own real story without any embellishment. That is the truth of who you are. Once that story is formed, and it takes years. I have never seen a young person know their story. I've known many stories, many of which I actually believed as well. And but when the shell got broken first through ovarian cancer, and it got built back again in a certain way that is still part of our societal reformatting, and then something else happened, which we'll talk about in the memoir, that was even greater in terms of the way that it the way of the blessing of the broken. Something even greater blessing of the broken happened to me later on, that I understood that the story is quite clear. To be a woman means to claim it back from Mother Earth and from ourselves inside. And Mother Earth is hurting today. There's no doubt about it. There isn't a single human being that is not hurting today. Certainly, the women are the womb of Mother Earth manifested outwardly. And so we carry more of our hurt. So together, we need to come back to sadhana, to not only tend to the earth, tend to the land, tend to the land inside. This is the land. This is the womb container of the whole universe. Our brain is the brain of the whole universe. Our heart is the open eyes of the universe. It's phenomenal. So we reclaim it in a selfless way for ourselves and family and community, but in fact we are reclaiming Mother
That is so incredible, and what a message. And that leads us into the last bit of work that you're doing, or the newest work that you're doing, and that's Shakti womb, or the womb. What is that?
Yes, I've never not done that work, but after the journey as a sannyasin, that's a Vedic monk, male, female, but in this case, Swamini, female Vedic monk. Uh, After that stoic journey, I understood something. Uh, there's nothing like wisdom, and the tradition has it. The Vedic tradition is so steep in universal truths. Every goddess is an archetypal energy of the universe. Every god is an archetypal energy of the universe that is specific. When I talk about cosmic memory and the way that's knit together, every animal carries a phenomenal part of the Shakti memory, and they're the memory keepers in some ways, which I'll elaborate in another book. But what I discovered in a very silent and quiet way was that after cancer, when I lost my womb, I marched on into a stoic human being, never regretted that, into my own journey of exploring the ancestral background of the Vedas, and then Sanskrit, and then the Vedas, and then Ayurveda. But I was fascinated by how healing happened, because it didn't happen with the medical protocol, although I had it all 12, 14 operations or surgeries and chemotherapy and radiation and the whole works, and was given a death sentence really, and then came back through my isolation, solitude, didn't understand that I was coming back, though I was going away to die, and came back alive. And so that opened a whole vista between the subtle and gross body, the Shukshma and Stula bodies, where I'm hanging in between, untethered from one or the other, and still not leaving the earth. And it was the exploration of that vista that took 30 something years. Finally, something happened. The key significant something, which we'll talk about in the book, which we've talked about in the book, happened. And it triggered the understanding that I had marched on so stoically, also to help the ancestors to heal, and the grievances of our lives to change, and da 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 da, and the feminine to come to the fore. And the goddess absolutely was with me all the way from cancer forward, that I recognized. And I understood that I had put away that beautiful woman, that young woman in the loss of the womb, kind of just marched on and wanted to express again that my femininity is connected to that part which needed a lot of airing out, and the ropes tethered me too much for that airing. So we've been airing ever since, and airing as well. But airing is better.
So today,
Hmm.
what is the message that you'd like to, deliver to mankind, to women, to the work? What's the first step one can take into this work? I get that we're saying know thyself and heal thyself. We're also saying, to really start in the practice of awareness. And I like that word in Sanskrit, shraddha, because it's got, we think it's faith, but in faith there is a potential of awareness. And in that awareness is the innate foundation of healing, in that knowing of self.
One of the masculine principle stuff that as we've all emulated to some extent is that we feel that consciousness is that we must know things. What is truly deeply primordially feminine, and I've described this faith shraddha this way, or courage I've described this way. For women, courage is the willingness to not know, meaning we bide our time, and when we are ready for the truth, it will show itself. Because struggling to know what we do not know takes so much energy. And even if the truth is given to us at a certain time when we're not prepared for it, it would make more havoc in our lives than anything else. And the reason I say that is the starting point in every sadhana is to simplify the space around us because our external space is our internal space. One walks in this beautiful Ayurvedic ritual spa into this amazing red tent that you've created that can be seen by anyone from the outside in this exquisite space, and the mind shifts, the heart opens. Something happens, it's a transformation that's unspoken because space heals us.
Mm.
So we are to clear the clutter out of our home, number one. We're to then clear the clutter out of our inner self, number two. We're to ask the wonderful thing about intent is called a sankalpa in Sanskrit. That sankalpa is to let me know my story. What is my story? My real story. Not the one that I fell in love with, this one that had this and had these beautiful children, have the Lexus, have the. No, not that story. But the story of what is my story? It's a quiet thing. Start journaling. It's a wonderful way to figure out what your story is. But we're not going to be able to claim sadhana in our daily life unless we clear our spaces, clear out the clutter, get rid of some of the things we think we need to do and must do and have to do. There is no must do and have to do in sadhana. Our society has trained us all over the world to be expansive and externalized. We've got to understand that some restraint, some discipline, some lessening is so important for reclaiming the things that matter, which is what do we do naturally during the day? That is the sadhana. We do at least 100 activity every day, each one of us. How many of those 100 activities are we truly aware of and do it with the fullness of ourselves? We're washing a dish. We're putting it away. We're cleaning the house. It's a sadhana. We're speaking to someone, and please let's get rid of all these gadgets. We don't need to text 24/7. We don't need to be on the phone 24/7. We don't need to be on Netflix 24/7. Yes, it was a nice break for me to see some nice movies on Netflix. But what I'm saying is balance. We're preparing a meal. We don't need to grab boom, boom, blah, 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 big noise, big chaos. I'm not saying that that's what feminine chaos is. That's just havoc. There's a difference between chaos and havoc.
So what do you mean by the chaos of the feminine? Give me an
Dynamic.
example. The dynamic.
Everything expect our life to always break open free because then new birth comes because we can break open free. Whoever said that bringing a baby through the channel of our birth was a simple or even non painful activity? It's one of the most painful activities for women. I forgot how painful a doctor described it as being, and that the normal person would never be able to sustain that kind of pain. To give birth to a star, there has to be chaos. Is a universal understanding. To give birth, we are always creative. Femininity is creativity. In the morning, in the Vedic tradition, it's the woman, the poorest of women and the wealthiest of women, goes out and she forms the rice mandala, which she does at the Rangoli in different colors. She makes it in front of their home, not only because she wants to be creative and make mandala out there in front of her gate and in the front pathway of her home. No, it was because she was setting the vibration for the whole community that morning. Shakti. And that is what chaos is. It has chaos has peace in the middle. But what I'm saying is we as women should never be afraid to break up, to break apart. I call it the blessing of the broken. Even wrote a song about it. It's beautiful. And the blessing of the broken is that it is chaotic. There's a lot of chaos. But then with the Shakti, we always come back to the center. We become the observer of the chaos rather than the doer of the chaos. Let the men have a lot to do, let them do. We simply have to be. But let us not think that life is going to be organized and gift wrapped because it never will be. And for women, it never is. It's a messy situation. That's what I mean by chaos. Accept it.
Amazing. When you first introduced Ayurveda as a lifestyle for, you know, creating balance in people's lives, you introduced this idea of healing yourself with food, breath, and sound. I mean, most of your three first books were very much about that. And I'll never forget when you spoke about how each organ has a special sound that sounds like how the preparation of food was. And you did this whole sound ritual for people. And I recognized that, this is all connected to Akash, that space and that memory. And you actually brought me back, because I'm Latin, I'm South American, and that's when I hear your voice, I grew up with Guyanese, and it brings me back. It feels like home, because that's who introduced me to this whole Hindu path, my Punjabi friends and my Guyanese friends. And there was something very magical when you said, when you are in pain, when you are howling, when you are crying, go to the food of your own genetics and ancestry. Go to the music, the movements, the sounds, the smells. Your senses can they need to connect back to the truth of your origin.
Absolutely. This genetically modified organic food that we're having, the mutation of the land, the absolute poisoning of our land and food sources is a disaster. It's horrific because basically it challenges the tissue to dhatu memory. Food, anam aushadam asti, food growing on the earth is our primordial medicine. What the sages were telling us really is that the formation and transformation of a seed into a plant, into a fruit, into what we are eating, actually has the identical synchronized transformation in the seven dhatu layers of tissue. And I go into that in my newest book, which I've just started working on, called Food for One Must Be Food for All. And it talks about various food movements that we've started in the West. It talks about the genetically modified organisms and why they transmute and create mutation and diseases way beyond what we can even fathom. And it talks about all of the elements of Shakti in Mother Earth that has been given to us for free, that is trillions and trillions of dollars of gift that we need to start recognizing again. And also how simple it is to let Mother Earth become our guide again in this incredible thing. But food for one must be food for all. is going to be a wonderful work that evolves around the principles I've talked about, or cognitive memory, or dhatu memory, the food memory, the plant memory, how it all works together, and what happens when modern science steps in to step all over it, thinking that they are creating more food for the green revolution, just polluted the earth, as so much else of what we consider farming for the poor. We have enough food in this world to feed everybody. We simply have to do it under the guidance of Mother Nature again.
So now your work is going to be online, so anyone around the world can reach you, can study with
Right.
you. So tell us about that.
Oh, thank you for asking. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, we set up a, an online portal for the education, and we have run 2 years worth of food, breath, and sound Ayurveda called Kitchen Sadhana, the nutrition of
Okay.
food, and Ayurvedically and how that works. And it's each course has been a 1 year course. But now we're going to add shorter term courses. Women's Power to Heal will be there, on Uttara Vasti and how every woman in the entire world can use it up to a certain age, of course,
And
and
for those
after a
that don't
certain
know,
age.
what is that exactly?
Yes, but it is just replenishing the womb
Okay.
during the lunar
Yes.
cycle of the new moon, and nourishing it and cleansing it. Just exquisite. It's the red tent.
It's the
It's
red
absolutely
tent.
the red tent. You know, how to
Yes.
care for our reproductive wellness and understand that the Shakti's home is in our belly. Um, so Shakti Prana has to be understood. So those courses we're doing. And in fact, because so many of our friends have been losing their pets lately
Oh,
at a certain age,
yeah.
the doggies and, and pets go, the cats, whatever. And I've been writing out these rituals for them to do with the
Oh,
demise of their pets. And I decided I'm going to do a wonderful program online for we're celebrating your pet during the Kakur at Tihar days, when it's Vedically beautiful to celebrate your dogs, and also when at their demise, when they pass on, how to do the rituals for them.
oh, that's people are going to really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that will be a free program because
Yeah.
we have the Peace Mandala is already a free program online,
Okay.
so anyone can now take a toolkit, the Peace Mandala toolkit, and create a Peace Mandala for so many different causes.
And take that vow of
And take
ahimsa.
the vow of ahimsa and influence the community and take that grain of food back and put it in some earth again so that it's symbolic, but it's also the advocating that is manifesting
Yeah.
the birth of again the rebirth of food for one must be food for all. We cannot have elitist movements with it because basically what happens then is we're putting just another layer on top of the already thwarted, distorted layers of nourishment and nurturance. And we can't afford to do that.
And
We've
people are
got to get back
confused.
to the simplicity
Yeah.
of simple nourishment that Mother Earth gives us. We cannot afford to do what we're doing today on either end of the spectrum.
Well, and that's the biggest question in any Ayurveda self-care class that I've taught or others. The first question is always, what should I eat for my body type? And people love that information. I think there's a lot of confusion out there. So I'm so happy that there's going to be a return back to the truth in terms of
Because the seasons tell us what we need to
yeah.
eat. They grow what it is we need at that time for all body types. And specifically, the food for each individual metabolic type has to do more with when that body is suffering from something or another. Then we narrow it a bit to that specific individual type.
Yes.
But nature has always given us every season what everybody needs. And we've got to get back to that simplicity. We can't call ourselves bit of this, bit of that, bad of this, and bad of this, and bad of that, and bad of that. And I'm the A type and the blood type B and the B, and eating for this blood type and eating for that food type. And eating, it's all facades over, it's all covering up the mire. We need to get back to the simplicity of knowing that Mother Earth knows what to give us in her right season.
Mother Earth knows everything, and I'm so happy to have Mother Maya here. That, in a way, her power, her Shakti, is with the torch of knowledge that she has, is really bringing um, a simplistic connection back to truth. And you'll read it in all of her books. You'll hear it whenever you listen to some of her messages on YouTube or her online channels. And so I really encourage you to look her up and experience a different approach to Ayurveda that she offers, which is like that's why she's Mother Maya, because when you go to your mother's home, she knows what you need to eat and how to bring the truth of who you are. A mother always tells you or reminds you who you are. And so the simplicity of what Mother Maya is writing and sharing is medicine for the world. And so I'm very honored and unbelievably surprised that on Lakshmi's day, she arrives in Toronto. I meet her, and we have this
The Festival
incredible
of Light,
Festival of
Diwali,
Light,
yes,
Diwali. This
yes.
is a very auspicious day and auspicious time that you've come to Toronto to bless us again. And sir, where are you going next? What's happening? Back to the drawing board of writing?
Back to it because I've not completed my sabbatical. I actually came to Toronto to speak at the Parliament of World Religion. This is my third address at that Parliament, first in Melbourne, then Utah, and then now it was in Canada. So every 4 years now, the Parliament of World Religion convene in one country or another. So that was my primary reason for being in Toronto. And of course, I couldn't be here without seeing you.
Oh, I'm so happy. It's like this is your home. You're always welcome here. And next time when you're not on sabbatical, we'll definitely invite all of you over to Ayurveda Rituals and experience some of the knowledge and transmissions that Mother Maya can provide. Just being in her aura and her presence has been very healing for me on my today would be my 74th day of my 365 day of commitment and my sankalpa to bringing the healing of food, breath, and sound into my daily life in my urban Toronto retreat. And the mentors, your teachers have to always be honored. And I am very grateful that, Mother Maya is one of my first introducers, and to be able to spend time and in association so that one can receive the transmission of this knowledge is a blessing. And I wanted to share it. I didn't want to keep it all to myself. I wanted to share it with you guys as well. And I hope you've enjoyed our wonderful Shakti discussion today. And there's a few people that have asked a couple of questions. So we'll end maybe with a couple of those questions. And if there's any final message that you'd like to give. And the first question that a lot of people have is how karma plays into all of this, and what is really karma?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
Karma is vast, and we have karmas in this life that we've developed, karmas in prior lives, in our Purva Janma or prior lives, and got millions of lives.
Mm.
So it's sometimes very difficult when we feel that the situation is unfair to us, for instance, and we cannot really pin it to any of the deeds we have done or misdeeds we've done in this life. Part of Shraddha or faith is understanding that there's some karma from some time way, way, way when that may have come back. And karmas only come back in the negative sense when they need to be cleansed and reconciled with. So the journey of life is messy, as I said, and there are many karmas, and we don't know where they're coming from sometimes. So we feel victimized or whatever. But if we have that shraddha, that faith and understanding that nothing happens without a cause, we're not to be blamed either for them. They just happen because of a cause. And we are asked to process it through our own intelligence and our being and we're asked to make sacrifices in a karmic state. Um, Let us look at not so much as good karmas and bad karmas. We all love the good karmas when we have awards and celebration and everyone loves us and we love what we're doing and we have great jobs and we meet great spouses, and our children are born and they're so beautiful, and we're like so pleased. Okay, great. But we also have to understand that what we call negative karmas are necessary as well, because we have to be able, it is when we grow. When things are great, we don't grow. We are living on the equity of our lives and living it out. When things are challenging and difficult, and the karma is just pressed up against a rock and a hard place inside of us, then basically we are being asked to grow, to change, to make radical change, depending on how difficult the karma is. So understanding karma in that way helps us to move through it. Let's not fall into the roles of victim and perpetrators, dark and light, white and black, because when we do that, we feed the negativity of the karma more so than anything else. As a woman, we look at the karma as a place, a hard place of serving something deeper and greater than ourselves that we strive to understand. And then it passes. We gain something. And we don't necessarily know what we've gained from it either. We can't demand an answer. We cannot demand that we tell me what the lesson is. Oh, at some point, who cares? The fact is, what we care about is that we're getting through it. Who is it that said, "Oh my goodness, I'm in hell right now," and then the person responded, "Well, keep walking. Sooner or later we get out of it." You know, so yeah, so karma needs to be understood in the way of our lessons, and not so much knowing why something happened, when it's happening, because we waste so much energy and why and when and who and what and where, and none of it is relevant to getting through that process.
And karma is so layered and complicated, right?
Yes,
And
absolutely.
it's very difficult to,
Yeah.
to understand it exactly.
Yeah,
And
so many evil things happen, so many violent things happen in wars, for instance. We can call it evil, we can call it violent, we can call it horrific, all of these difficult words. It does happen.
mm,
But our looking at, from a Shakti point of view, looking at it is about always striving to understand.
mm.
That's the only thing that can get us through karma when it's dense.
The other question that I was asked to ask you is about a person newly starting a spiritual journey or a spiritual life. You mentioned start journaling. You mentioned, the sadhana practices. Is there anything else that you mentioned that we are all spiritual beings,
Absolutely,
and
that's the answer.
and so that's the answer.
We're all spiritual beings, but we go through different changes. We go
Yes.
through times when we're more aware of our need for spirituality, meaning sadhana in our life, because sadhana is spirituality. Awareness is spirituality.
Mhm.
I'm aware that I'm angry. I'm aware that I'm not doing what I said I would be doing. That awareness is the spirituality. Not that I'm not doing or doing what it is I think I'm doing. Do you understand? The awareness behind everything we do is our spirituality.
Mm.
And when we start out simple. Okay, I get up in the morning. Okay, what is your routine? Okay, that routine now becomes a spiritual routine to me because I'm aware of that routine. I like that routine. No, I don't like that routine, so I'll change it so that I like the routine, because we have to like what it is we are doing. And we find that we do it better, we do it faster, even though we're not speeding up, and we find that less is more
Okay.
on
those.
those things. Yeah.
Then the last question a lot of people have is because both you and I we've taken different initiations in the Vedic tradition, but definitely we've taken a lot of initiations. And what is your understanding of the importance of initiations and the ritual behind initiation? And is it necessary? Is it not necessary?
It depends on the karma of the person. It depends, meaning on the story of the person, on
Yes.
the real story and the journey of that person. My life has been an extraordinary one, really, but I didn't fashion it. It was my karma in this life. And for me, initiations, the first initiation as a brahmachari was to reclaim the ancestry my ancestry that were so brutally ripped apart when the British towed them into or across many the most violent journeys to the West Indies, to Guyana, Trinidad, wherever, Fiji Islands. And when an ovarian cancer was an initiation of understanding something the goddess mother wanted me to understand, that I had a bedrock story within me that had to be explored and unfolded. So the first initiation as a brahmachari was basically to heal my ancestry, the angst of my ancestors. And it did work. I felt many members of my family ran to become into spiritual lives, even the medical ones. And I didn't do anything. And you can't be a guru to your own family. That's not a very cherished position. So basically, you could see the effects of certain things when they are in consonance with the divine energy. The later initiation as a sannyasin, as a swami in orange, was something I thought out very, very carefully. And my first instinct was not to do it. But my teacher told me that after his demise, there'll be no one there who was qualified to give it in that sense.
Yes.
And that, and because he felt I didn't have my womb, I'm walking a perfect journey as a teacher, a spiritual teacher, living a yogic life, all of those things. And I actually, there's always the pleasing of the father. And I love my father as well. And I thought, okay, I'll take it. But
That feminine intuition.
there was something there. But I don't regret having done it either
No.
because it taught me so much,
Yes.
so incredibly much. But there came a time when I had to initiate into my own story, my real story, my story that transcends my parents, my teachers, my guru, my cancer, and even the feminine form of a woman. And when I looked at that story, I understand that I am doing my own initiation to be a liberated, free person.
Hallelujah.
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 And
So the book.
initiation is not necessarily an initiation by our gurus or by our parents. Although we are initiated by our parents, that's how we come into the
Yes.
world. And then we are initiated at different stages of our life by our people. And then we're initiated sometimes by our gurus, if that's the journey that the divine have given us. But then we're initiated all the time by life. And the most amazing initiation is to initiate ourselves into our own story.
On that note, what a story that you
Chima.
sent. And thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing all of those amazing things
Namaste.
in this day. That was beautiful.
But you're a beautiful interviewer too. You see, the conversation works.
Well, I've watched some of the interviews where the interviewer is always interrupting.